This is the S3X fixed gear 3-speed assembly procedure. Install the axle in a vise or this jig with the left side facing up. The left side, there's a circlip ring right here. Then install the planet cage assembly. Use some Castrol CLS 00 grease inside the assembly and on the axle. The axle keys move up and down with this spring that's pre-installed at the factory. Put the little grease inside the slot where the keys go. And rotate and install the planet cage. And then a small circlip. And make sure the circlip is in the groove. It should rotate without popping out of the groove. Then invert the assembly so the right side of the axle is up. Then the clutch. A little grease on the clutch and on the engagement area of the planet cage, and then the clutch will pop down into the notches. Then we have the gear ring, more of the Castrol CLS 00 grease, and on the inside of it also, and also inside the clutch and on the outside of the clutch you will want some grease. Should rotate easily. Next is the ball ring. Need some Castrol LMX grease for the bearings. And then the ball cage assembly. And on the inside of the ball ring there is a ratchet area. Some Castrol CLS 00 grease on that. It will just sit on top at this point. It moves around, it doesn't engage anything. Then the clutch spring and the clutch spring cap. It is grooved. There's a channel that fits onto the spring. The other side is flat. A little grease on top of that, the Castrol CLS 00 grease. Next is the driver. There's a labyrinth seal here. Fill that with the LMX grease and grease inside the bearing. And Castrol CLS 00 grease inside the driver and on the groove. And then install the driver and rotate the gear ring and planet cage until the driver sits down all the way and there's no gap. Then the right hand cone and the nut runner tool makes the job easier. Tighten the cone down until it touches the bearings, and then rotate it counterclockwise 1/4 turn. Thread the serrated lock nut down, and then hold the cone with a 16 and torque the lock nut with a 14mm to 8.5 Newton meters. Make sure the ball cup turns freely. Threading the internal assembly into the hub shell is a little tricky. This 3-pronged side of the planet cage needs to engage the 3 notches in the shell as you thread the ball cup in. Thread the ball cup into the hub shell it will immediately start to bind. Turn the driver slightly as you're trying to thread in the ball cup, and you'll feel it click and engage. Then continue to thread in the ball cup. And torque the ball cup very firmly with the ball cup spanner while it's in a wheel. Then install the right side in a vise on the axle flats. Use some bearing grease in the dust cap and in the bearings. Thread on the left cone. Thread on a 17mm lock nut. Now adjust the hub for free play and torque the lock nut to 8.5 Newton meters. Checking at the rim, when this is built into a wheel, there should be no play at the rim and the hub should turn freely and smoothly. Finally, install a serrated lock nut. It's important to always use a serrated lock nut with the fixed gear hubs. Then hold the cone with a 16mm and use a 14mm to torque the lock nut to 8.5 Newton meters. And then you're done.